Could LSU, for the second year in a row, take down Alabama? Now, it's in Tuscaloosa this year, but last year in Baton Rouge, it came down to the final play. I put play in quotation marks, air quotes, rather, because it was a two-point conversion. Final score was 32-31. Jaden Daniels and Mason Taylor finding a way to walk it off. Brian Kelly showing some gumption, some confidence in his team. That was last year. Turn the page to this year. Can LSU do it for the second year in a row? We're going to give you our prediction in this game tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the On3 YouTube channel on the Hard Count. We'll be live at that time doing our predictions for all of week 9, or all of week 10. Crazy. Season's flying by. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a minute of it. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, on Instagram, at JD Piquel, so you don't miss anything we got going on over there. How can LSU get it done? I think there's a couple of things that in my mind have to fall into place, and LSU has to put them in place for them to be able to win this football game. And the first thing I think is the perimeter of this Alabama defense. I think you got to test that. Because last year, Jaden Daniels just did pretty much whatever he wanted against this Alabama defense when he got on the edge. Ran for 95 yards. Now you say, JD, it's a new defensive coordinator. You know, the personnel has changed a little bit. It's like, yes, the burden of proof, though, is still very much so on Alabama to be able to stop that. Like that whole pseudo triple option where it's the read option and then you have your tight end Mason Taylor coming out on the perimeter and you put that edge defender in conflict. Is he going to cover Mason Taylor and let Jaden Daniels run? Is he going to go and try and rally up and make a tackle on Jaden Daniels and leave Mason Taylor available? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Or at least Alabama hasn't been able to have their cake and eat it too to this point against that kind of play. The other reason why I think you have to really work the perimeter of this Alabama defense and try and attack that second and third level of the defense on the edge of the defense is because Alabama, they're really good against the run. Averaging right around 3.1 yards a carry given up is that Bama defense translation. I don't think it's a game where you just line it up and say, hey, north-south, baby, let's get this going. Straight downhill. Straight up the gut. That's how we're going to attack Alabama. I don't think that's really what they want to do if you're LSU. I think they want to, again, get them running, get them rocking and rolling, attack them on the outside, puncture that way. Like, I don't think it's just run into a brick wall if you're the LSU offense. Now, they may have that available to them when they get some more things going on the perimeter, when you get the pass game working a little bit. But again, the way that Alabama is set up, the strength of that defense, I don't think you just want to attack the interior. I think you kind of want to make it a cat and mouse game on the outside. And again, it's got to be a thing where Bama finds a way to stop that if they want to beat LSU. The burden of proof, yet again, is on Alabama to stop that. Okay? Other thing we got to watch here. Other thing that I think LSU has to do to win this football game in Tuscaloosa. There's so much made about the LSU defense and what they haven't done well this year. And all that criticism, guess what? It's warranted. People aren't just pulling this out of thin air. LSU's had their issues. They haven't looked very LSU-ish on that side of the football. But to win a game like this, I think you have to win where you're supposed to defensively for LSU. And what I mean by that is Alabama, it's a headline all across college football. The Alabama offensive line, when it comes to protecting Jalen Milroe, they got issues. Some of that's Jalen Milroe holding the ball too long and trying to make plays when they're not there, but they're giving up 16% sack rate on the season. That's good for 132nd in the country. 132nd in the country. Translation, there's going to be plays to be made on the offensive line against Alabama if you're the defensive front seven for LSU. And so, is your secondary like the best it's ever been? No. Got issues like we already talked about. So in order to kind of supplement that, let's get after Jalen Milroe. Let's win where we're supposed to up front if we're LSU. Because you got guys like Mason Smith, so much talk about him coming into the season. Let's have him step up in a big way in this game. Big zero. Harold Perkins. We've talked a lot about him preseason, and I think during this part of the season, he's starting to kind of come more and more into a rhythm. The way he played against Auburn was encouraging. But like if you're going to get after Jalen Milroe, you got to have the athletic linebacker to try and match up with him that way, like Harold Perkins has done to this point in his young career. That's kind of been his specialty. And Alabama, the way they can really hurt you, yes, they want to run the football. Like that has to sort of be the price of admission for LSU is stopping the run. We understand that. But where Bama really throws that haymaker, that knockout punch, is when they push the ball vertical. When Isaiah Bond catches a deep touchdown. When Jermaine Burton gets, his on the outside and gets a one-on-one shot and he makes some kind of acrobatic catch over your defensive back. When they can push the ball deep, that's where they hurt you. Well, you can't push the ball deep if you've got a grown man running straight at you and is tackling you to the ground. Like that's where things could really start to, I think, avalanche for LSU in a positive way. Now, what I just said about Harold Perkins, I think we got to revisit that. The matchup between Harold Perkins and Jalen Milroe is going to be, I think, critical in this game, especially in those plays where the play breaks down and the previous play is dead. Like whatever you had drawn up previously for Alabama, it doesn't matter anymore. Whatever you had previously drawn up for LSU doesn't matter anymore. At that point, it's like schoolyard football. Yes, you have your assignment you're still holding to on the back end. We understand that. But what I'm talking about for this matchup is those plays where if you're Jalen Milroe, you make something out of what would have been nothing / a negative play. I think Harold Perkins needs to win the majority of those plays. And it doesn't have to be a sack. It doesn't have to be a forced fumble. I'm talking about we hold him to no gain or we hold him to where he throws the football away. That's what I need from LSU. I can't have it be, hey, it was going to be a sack and then he ran for a first down. You got to limit those plays, and it's going to be on Harold Perkins, in my mind, to be able to limit those plays in a game like this. I understand he's had different responsibilities throughout the year, has Harold Perkins, from what he had last year. I get that. In this game, I think you need to match him up with Jalen Milroe. He's too dynamic, and they do too much throwing the football downfield to just let him sit back there and be comfortable and not win how you're supposed to up front. Now, last thing that I'll say here about LSU to win this football game. Look at who's been able to put Alabama on the ropes. It's been teams that have been able to push the ball downfield. Like Texas won the football game against Alabama because of what they did vertically, but I think the bigger point within that, Alabama was not able to match up with the quantity of weapons that Texas had in that football game. We were there. We saw it in living color. Xavier Worthy got to work in that first half. Second half, Alabama shut the water off. So what did Texas do? They went to Adonai Mitchell, and he got after it in the second half and caught a deep touchdown pass to kind of set the whole thing off. Like, that was, I think, the key for Texas, and I think that's the key to beating Alabama, especially in the secondary. So to put a broader point on this needs to be the yes and kind of game for LSU when it comes to those pass catchers. Like, it can't just be Malik Neighbors has a good game and he's playing well. His box score at the end of this thing is like 100 yards and a touchdown and 6 catches. Like, I need the yes and Kyron Lacey had a big game. Yes, and they had to worry about Brian Thomas. Yes, and Mason Taylor was a factor in the pass game over the middle. Like, the quantity of weapons is what's going to hurt Alabama. This defense, like I just said a second ago, I think they're too good for one guy to beat you for the duration of a game. Xavier Worthy had 5 catches in the first half against Alabama, did not have a catch in the second half against Alabama. Now, some of that's schematically what Texas did. I understand that. Squirrel White, great game against Alabama. The reason why Tennessee wasn't able to hold that lead, nobody else was able to separate for that Tennessee wide receiving core. It has to be a quantity game. It has to be the yes and game for LSU to get it done. Statistically, Alabama pretty good against the pass. LSU also statistically really good throwing the football downfield. Well over 300 yards passing a game. Alabama going into last week, they were somewhere around less than 200 yards a game allowed through the air. So it's kind of going to be a rock meets hard place and movable objects meets unstoppable force there. But again, the quantity of weapons for LSU is going to be the key to being able to push the ball downfield. So the LSU offense 2.0 that wasn't in this game last year. There wasn't the deep passing attack that they have this year that was available. Can they make that happen? And can they capitalize, rather, on that approach with all the weapons they have? Something to watch for in this game as well. Mike Denbrock, the way he schemes it up, and what they do pre-snap, Alabama's had issues before during this season, most notably the game against Texas, where it would be a shift and Alabama had to reset in the secondary and figure out their responsibilities, and they had issues handling that. Nick Saban talked about it after that game. That was week 2. I don't pretend this is the same Alabama secondary, but just keep an eye on what LSU does pre-snap and how much they're able to confuse that Alabama secondary, and if they're able to get a couple of gimmies by nature of Alabama having trouble sorting that out. So, again, we'll give you our prediction for this game tomorrow. We pick an Alabama, we pick an LSU. I don't know. We're going to do some work on it today, and we'll give you our pick tomorrow, Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, on this show, The Hard Count, on this platform, the On3 YouTube channel. I'll tweet out a link when we go live, so follow me there, at JD Pickell, also on Instagram, at JD Pickell. Hey, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. The beautiful thing that is Week 10 is starting right now. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.